Okay, let's go.
Let's talk about money. It's this language that pretty much everyone on Earth understands, whether you're a bigger or a billionaire. It's built entire empires, and yeah, it's brought them crashing down too. It's the reason we've got these incredible skyscrapers and can travel faster than the wind. But have you ever stopped to ask, what even is it? Okay, let's dive in and find out. The source material we're digging into today kicks things off with this really interesting paradox. Think about it. A simple piece of paper, worthless on its own, somehow gets to decide the value of everything else we care about. It's a wild concept we just accept every single day without a second thought. And that's the big question for today, right? How on earth did this whole system get started? Where did this piece of paper or, these numbers on a screen get all this incredible power? Well, to find the answer, we've got to go way, way back in time. Okay, so our story starts thousands of years ago, long before anybody had ever seen a coin or a dollar bill. This was humanity's very first crack at doing business. The evolution of how we trade was really just a long, slow process of trial and error. First, we had the simple barter system. Then we upgraded to using common goods, commodities, as a kind of money. And eventually, we landed on precious metals like gold and silver. Every single step was basically an attempt to fix the problems with the last one. So this slide really gets to the heart of the problem. Bartering, it was just so inefficient. Imagine you're trying to trade your rice for some sugar, but the person who has the sugar needs wheat, not rice. It's a complete logistical nightmare. Now, commodity money, like using cattle or grain, was a bit better, but it wasn't perfect. Your money could literally die, or it could rot. And how do you agree on the value of one cow versus another? People needed something that would last, something you could easily divide, and something everyone agreed was valuable. And that's where gold stepped in. So gold solved a lot of those problems, but, wouldn't you know it, it created a brand new one. Sure, it was valuable, but it was also super heavy and pretty risky to just carry around. And the solution to that problem, well, it accidentally created our entire modern banking system. Right, so people loved having gold. It was a great way to store your wealth. But using it for everyday shopping? Not so much. Walking around with a big pouch of gold coins basically put a giant target on your back for thieves. People needed a safer option. And here's the clever solution they came up with. People started leaving their gold with local goldsmiths, who had these big, secure vaults for safekeeping. In exchange, the goldsmith would give them a paper receipt, basically an IOU note, that proved how much gold they had stored. And pretty soon, people figured out it was way easier and safer to just trade these paper receipts directly, instead of constantly going back to the goldsmiths to get the actual gold. Everyone just trusted that the paper was good for the gold. Okay, now hold on, because this is where the story takes a really wild turn. The source material we're looking at uses some pretty strong language here, calling what happened next the world's biggest legal scam. So let's break down why it says that, because this is the moment that changes everything. See, the goldsmiths started to notice something really interesting. People almost never came back to get their actual physical gold. These paper IOUs were just circulating around town as if they were the money. And that's when the light bulb went off. What was stopping them from just writing out more receipts than the gold they actually had in the vault? They could lend these new fake receipts to people, charge interest on them, and make a profit out of thin air. All it took was paper and trust. And just like that, the system we basically still use today was born. That little goldsmith's shop, it became the world's very first bank. And that simple paper receipt, that IOU, that became the world's first paper currency. A piece of paper backed not entirely by gold, but by a promise. Okay, so that little history lesson brings us right to the heart of how our financial system works today. That simple, clever trick the goldsmiths figured out, that's the foundation. We just have a fancier name for it now. Fractional reserve banking, and it's how money is literally created out of nothing. Most of us have this simple picture of how a bank works, right? You put your money in, and the bank lends that same money out to someone else. But the source we're examining says, that's not the full story. It's not even close. There's a much bigger game being played. Let's make this real. Let's follow the money, your money. Imagine you walk into a bank and you deposit a crisp 1,000 rupee note. So you pull out your phone, you open your banking app, and there it is. Your balance says 1,000 rupees. So far, so good, right? But here's what's happening behind the scenes. By law, the bank only has to keep a small fraction of your deposit on hand. We'll say 10%, so that's 100 rupees.
It can then take the other 900 rupees and lend it out to somebody else who needs a loan. Now, this is where the magic happens.
And this right here, this is the absolute key to the whole thing. Your bank balance still shows that you have 1,000 rupees that you can spend whenever you want. But at the exact same time, the person who got the loan now has 900 rupees in their account, which they can also spend. All of a sudden, there's more spendable money in the system than there was just a minute ago. This chart just lays it out perfectly. Your initial 1,000 rupees in physical cash has just turned into 1,900 rupees of total purchasing power. The bank didn't just move your money around, it actually created 900 rupees of new virtual money with just a few keystrokes on a keyboard. And believe me, it doesn't stop there. When that borrower goes and spends their 900 rupees, that money gets deposited into another bank. That bank then keeps its 10%, 90 rupees, and lends out the other 810, creating even more money. The source explains that through this multiplier effect, your single 1,000 rupee deposit can eventually create up to 10,000 rupees of new currency throughout the economy.
So all of this leads us to the final, and maybe the most important, distinction that our source makes. It argues that the thing most of us call money, well, it isn't really money at all. It's something called currency.
Just take a look at this chart. It's pretty staggering. The source suggests that if you could add up all the money in every bank account around the world, less than 10% of it actually exists as physical cash and coins. More than 90% of it is just virtual digits on a computer server. So here's the breakdown. The source defines currency as something like a banknote. It's just a medium of exchange, and its value is based completely on our trust in the government that printed it. If that trust disappears, the currency can become worthless. Money, on the other hand, is defined as an asset like gold. It has its own intrinsic value no matter what any government or bank says. It's valuable simply because it's real. So to wrap up this perspective, the source basically concludes that our entire financial system is an illusion. It's a system built on layer after layer of trust, from those old Goldsmith IOUs all the way to the digital numbers in our bank accounts today. And, it argues, it's been made deliberately complicated so that most of us don't really question how it works. And that leaves us with one last, pretty powerful question to think about. If the vast, vast majority of what we call money doesn't even physically exist, if it's all just an entry in some digital ledger somewhere, what is it that we're actually putting our faith in? Is it the government, the banks, or is it just our trust in the system itself?